Hello everyone, it is Friday the 20th of March 2015 and I'm bringing you yet another update of the ProTip crowdfunding campaign, and we are up to $4,450 with still one more of the Casacious coins to give away. Not give away, shouldn't really say that. You do actually have to pay for it, about $450 to be exact. And then our Chief Fulfillment Officer, David Bailey, will be sending it over to you. He's also told me, had a quick chat with David before we came on air, that he might send out some mystery gifts to some of you very generous donors that have been sending in your donations, particularly those among you who actually didn't ask for any gifts. He's apparently going to be sending you some gifts anyway because he's a really nice guy like that. So thank you very much for your support. You can also support us in Bitcoin as well. And let me show you right now how you can do that. The Bitcoin address is in the description of this video, or you can pause the video and scan in the QR code if you've got one of those fancy mobile wallets. So I think you should do that. Now, Theo, do you think they should do that? How much do you reckon they should be donating to a project like this, with this kind of potential?
Well, you know, it's all about what do you value. I mean, you could look at it from the point of value, and do you value a company that you're paying for a service for, and they provide the service, but you're not sure how much it costs exactly, so the deal is kind of unclear because it's supposed to be free, but it's not really free. Or you can support ProTip, and what do you get? You get open source software that exists for as long as, you know, this kind of software stuff exists. So this project just doesn't go away. So a service you use for a time and then, you know, it goes away, or you have to pay for it, and with this you help support it, and it exists and it can evolve. So you can decide how much you want to support that.
No, I think that's right. I think it's about supporting us, and I think a lot of other people out there are realizing that, not least among which is Johnny Bitcoin, who thinks that ProTip is a great project that needs support. Decentralized browser digital wallet for rewarding online creators. And apparently he also gave us $100 as well. In fact, that is his transaction right there. Gave us $100. How about that? That is very, very cool. Didn't even ask for a perk. He's going to get one anyway. I don't even care. We'll find out where he lives. We'll track him down, and we'll give him a ProTip t-shirt and some badges. And obviously, early access. Like anyone who sponsors us for more than $25, you will get early access to the app on the 1st of May when it gets released. So I'm not going to bore you with more of that. Probably will. Probably by the end of the show, if I'm honest. But in the meantime, I also want to introduce Ksenia. Hello. Where are you coming from today?
I'm from Malmö now, and I'm just missing Bitcoin pub crawl in Copenhagen because I just want to come on air instead. And,
yeah. And apparently we were just talking before we came on air. Apparently Ksenia doesn't like the top of her head, which is why oftentimes she does this thing where she, like, you know, chops off the top of her head on the camera.
I don't know. I don't think that's super important though.
Why don't you like the top of your head? What's wrong with it?
I don't know. My chair is too tall or something.
But everywhere. But it's even in cafes. What are you sitting in these really high chairs?
Here you go. Check this out. Here's the top of my head. You know, the whole thing right there.
I'm just tall.
Nice, huh?
I just want to look tall. I'm not so tall.
Okay, fair enough.
So what's this BTC pub crawl? Is it any good? Well, you suppose you don't know because you're not there.
I don't know. No, I know that there is some local Bitcoin exchange which trying to basically make all the pubs to accept Bitcoin, and someone who's working in this company organizing this pub crawls, and they're kind of nicer than just meetups when everyone comes to one pub and gets pissed. And I thought it's a good idea, but then again, it's the weather is not really. Actually, you just want to stay in one place. And I looked at the map and I thought, no, I'm not going for this pub crawl. It's also basically a marketing campaign, right? For an exchange, for a local Bitcoin exchange.
I mean, it wouldn't
which
be
is
so
nice.
bad if it wouldn't be so bad if it was like, I don't know, let's say an open source decentralized project where there was no like bottom line and investors and people making money out of it. But I think one of the things that you find with all of these Bitcoin companies is that because they're private entities and they've got to have a return on their investment, and they've usually got investors kind of making life hard for them and telling them they've got to reach these certain hurdles, they've got to get this many users on the platform, that bakes into their whole business activities this sort of agency. Well, in economics it's called the agency dilemma. It's the fact is you're trying to persuade someone to commit to an action, but actually you don't have their interests at heart, because really you're just interested in reaching a goal.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, with this kind of tools, I think it's kind of important for ProTip as well to actually always make it clear that we're not just trying to get users or something like that. That's the business model is entirely different. So, but yeah, I mean,
Well,
in a
I think it
sense,
depends on who. I think it depends on who profits. Like, of course, we want to have people using it. We don't necessarily have to use our app. They can use any open source variant. So anyone that just forks the code, as long as they keep the schema the same and the artists don't have to keep switching up and changing things on their website, as long as we've got that right, then it's really about who benefits.
yeah, but I mean, with Bitcoin exchanges, usually you just don't have a very nice price, but you have kind of a good brand behind it. Is like a friend of mine who's running one in Sweden. Of course, it's not going to be the best price ever, but at the same time, I mean, people, it's in Swedish, people know it. It sort of doesn't look very scary. So as an entry point, I mean, there is nothing wrong with these exchanges, but yeah, they
Yeah,
not.
I
I mean,
think you're right.
they
Like,
indirectly they're doing some good stuff.
yeah, as entry points, I think they're fine.
Yeah, actually,
The problem is when you just get an industry that's full of them.
yeah, that's true. But then it makes them compete as well and give people better price and better service. For example, when imagine a scenario when someone wants to donate Bitcoin to their favorite blogger or something, but they have no idea what it is. So they can download ProTip, and then they will probably need, or either they go on a marketplace and they learn how to trade and blah blah blah. But some people would just like to buy it as tokens from somewhere, just make it easy. So maybe for like users which are not, because I mean, ProTip needs to bring people in who are not necessarily interested in trading or crypto or anything. It's just any token, any way of remunerating someone with something which is not as clunky as whatever we have out there right now. I don't know. Should I mention names? Right? It's kind of um, a legit currency. It's peer-to-peer. But then again, loads of people. I mean, loads of people. If you think of, for instance, any conventional Bitcoin meetup group, I don't know, 80% just going to be into trading, right? They
Mm.
don't really kind of think about the fact that it's just a politically interesting uh, tool for peer-to-peer transactions, right?
Mm.
So, and in this sense, anyone who is charitable enough and wants to reward tips in a bar or just want to support something that he or she really likes, then this is not necessarily a person who will be interested in trading or crypto or even technology itself. So then I don't know how it's going to work. Would we recommend people places to get their Bitcoin, or uh, how would they top up their wallets?
Well, my vision is that people start earning the Bitcoin instead of paying for it with fiat money, and so we're constantly doing this dollar cross, this dollar, to Bitcoin average price. Like, who cares what it costs in dollars? Like, how much of your time is it worth? Well, can you buy food with it? Can you buy fuel with it? All these things that we need day to day. And right now, I don't think we're doing that. It's just such a trader-centric thing, which Theo and I are going to get onto in a bit more detail soon. But I still want to really, I think Bitcoin deserves a chance among an artistic group of people who create for a living, for whom it would be virtually no skin off their nose to simply set up a wallet, copy paste it onto their blog. It takes about 60 seconds. I've timed it. You know, setting up a Hive wallet, for example, on your phone, or setting up a blockchain.info wallet, copy pasting it and putting it into your blog takes less than 60 seconds.
Well, it's not more difficult than downloading any app. If you don't want to use it for like to put all your assets in, and then you have to fit a little bit with like Armory or something and installation. But I mean, your usual wallet with just a bit of satoshis, it's as any other app when you have to just download it and like press a couple of buttons, right? That's not a problem. But what I'm thinking of is like, it's basically the basic idea is to start using Bitcoin for something that it can be perfectly used, but for some reason is not. So, but my point is, in order to get some Bitcoin into this economy, then you either bring people who earned Bitcoin already, or made some Bitcoin, and some, I don't know, mined very early or whatever. They ended up with some Bitcoins, but then your average mortal who never touched Bitcoin in their life still want to be able to be part of the system. When they download ProTip and they start browsing and reading stuff, how does that's what I don't understand. Where do they get Bitcoin? I mean, I know where to get it, but not everyone.
Well, that's why we're focusing on two groups of people. So we're focusing on the artists and the content producers, and also we're focusing on the Bitcoin community. Now we can talk to the Bitcoin community and we can address them easily because we're from there, and so it's quite easy for us to get the Bitcoiners motivated. And we've got hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people that have donated to this campaign, that are behind it philosophically. They believe in it, and the way ideas like this usually gain mainstream adoption, or get what's called the pragmatist on board, is when they can see a world. The early adopters can see a world where that happens, and so long as they believe in it, they'll keep trying. Now, this is a hypothesis. We don't know if it's going to work. For me as a consumer, I'm not looking for new ways to pay, but I'm not just a consumer. I'm also a creator. I'm also an entrepreneur, and so that side of me understands how important it is to pay for honest work. So I can't have it both ways. I can't be on one hand in my role as consumer saying I don't want to pay for anything, let's drive everything to zero, and then on the other hand as an entrepreneur saying, oh yeah, but I need to, you know, buy a house and I need to pay for food. The two things have to work together. And yesterday what we were talking about on the show was the fact that now within a population, an internet population of 3 billion people, it's so easy now to find your tribe, to find your audience, the people that do want to help you, who find what you've got to give valuable. And I use the analogy from the gaming industry, from online gaming, where you have this phenomenon known as the whale, and it's the 1% of customers that will subsidize and more than pay for the other 99% by doing all the in-app purchases, by, you know, using it the whole time, and by spending money in there. They end up being the driver of that business model. So then the next question is, well, okay, how do we build a tool that helps artists find those people? Right? Given that we know that this type of topography exists in economics, where you've got the 1% paying for 99%, how do you work out who they are? Because then the challenge really as a content producer, or someone who's just getting, so maybe you're a violinist, okay, and you've been playing the violin when you were a kid, but then you kind of got a job and you settled down and you haven't played it for a while, but you're thinking of getting back into it. Well, you can just start making recordings. Like right now, you can start recording yourself, filming yourself, putting it out there, and you can start to build an audience, and you can start to gain some kind of passive income. Because what I noticed particularly was that if you wanted to get into crowdfunding, you either did like a big thing to like Bonanza, you went on Kickstarter and you raised lots of money, but what I noticed was it relied on having years and years worth of social capital built up, lots and lots of goodwill with some followers behind you. It required a lot of front loading. It required knowing journalists or having a PR company reach out to those journalists for you. It required getting all your friends to donate a lot of money in the first few days, making sure that it was all topped up. I mean, it's just I'm sorry to say, it's another one of those scams. But I thought, well, look, if we can make this easier to get into, if we could start that crowdfunding off a little bit, you know, at the lower level, at the ground floor, then I think you create an opportunity where anyone can then get up to the next level quite easily.
Yeah, because with crowdfunding it's either all or nothing, and like most people, they have bad experience with it actually, and like your simple mortal wouldn't be able to just raise a lot of money unless funds for a certain project. And in terms of like small, I mean, sometimes like if someone just a good blogger and occasionally can be donated some money which pays for coffees every now and then, that's also an achievement, I think. You know, because most people nowadays don't have offices and they work from I don't know, not most people but some people. So I mean, even if you can get tipped, even if if it doesn't get you like a lot of income or the full income, I mean, it's still a valuable thing. Because most, I mean, today I'm in Staple, in this co-working space, and I spoke to a guy who's now writing for some runners magazine, and he started as a blogger, and somehow he found his way to actually become a freelance writer for a magazine and actually get paid. But when he started, it was just like no income at all. So basically before you build your reputation to the point that someone's going to hire you or give you a proper freelance job, I mean, you're still going to benefit from a little bit of money coming in. So yeah, I'm a bit
Yeah,
wordy today. Maybe I
once
should.
people are more, I think once people are more used to holding Bitcoin, it gives them a chance, it gives them a taste. Because at the moment, if you want to get into Bitcoin, you've got to buy it, and that's always friction. The first thing you do when you say, "Well, how do I get some?" Right? It's one of the first things people ask, and the answer is, "Well, can I buy it with a credit card? No. Can I buy it with PayPal? No. Okay, so those are my two most convenient options. What are my options? Well, you have to go to this exchange, you have to set up, you know, all your you have to send your passport, you have to have your bank account and everything." And it's just like, oh god, that's a pain in the ass. Or they say, I'll go to a meetup and buy it in cash and you can do it there. But then again, that means meeting new people, right? So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to do all the things that most people try to avoid. Meeting new people isn't something that everyone's ready to do at any one time. Getting your passport out and going to an exchange and going through KYC, again, not something that everyone wants to do at any time. But if you just say to someone, all you've got to do is download an app and copy and paste this string of numbers into your web page, it's like, sure, why not? Like, I've always got time for this, you know, I could be doing this at any point. So that's the hypothesis, that's the theory, and I think this theory is well worth funding because I think it's a good idea, and enough smart people that I spoke to leading up to this crowdfund campaign thought that it was a good idea too. So moving on, Theo, let's talk about the price. The Bitcoin price.
Okay.
We hate talking about the price usually, but I think this one deserves
I don't hate talking about the price, but so right now it's at 262.84, and yeah, yesterday and the day before it went down a lot. So you can see it. All right, well, let's just go back and go to the left to before it was at 300 lately.
Up here.
It struggled a lot to get. There was the so-called, before your picture, there was the so-called Coinbase pump. There was a day where there was the announcement, well, there was a rumor on the weekend about something about Coinbase, and
Don't know if we've lost Theo there.
they were going to make.
Theo, you there? Have we lost you?
Pumped over three. So, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Today. Hi.
Hi.
Pumped over 300, and it didn't get back to that level. So it did touch 300 one day recently, and what happened was a lot of people got over exuberant. So that means that they took out longs on margin when the price was already high.
So it sounds like they were borrowing money. People were borrowing money. That's what it means when you take something out on margin, right? So you're borrowing money and you're going long, and you have to deposit a margin, you have to deposit some money, so that if you default and it doesn't go in the direction that you want it to, the exchange can then come back and take those funds. And the problem is that people were getting cocky and they were getting complacent, because that's what investors tend to do. They go into a market and they want to end with more than they started with, and so they look for a market that they think is most likely to yield that outcome. And so what happens is it becomes narcissistic, as in it tends to be reinforcing. If enough people start doing it, then other people start doing it too, and then as more people do it, the rally continues. But eventually things run out. You run out of new people. Right. It's the same in pyramid schemes. Eventually you run out of customers. You can't get any more.
Yeah, I mean, you could compare it a little bit to like that. Basically, that's why I really like the word, instead of overbought, oversold. It's not from me. There are other people that say it, overextended, because that's really what happened. You can imagine you stretch yourself out. So if you borrowed a bunch of money from all your friends to buy something, and you said, I'll pay you back in X amount of time, and then it's like, oh, I'm really going to lose a little bit on this, I'm going to be negative, then maybe you close your position. And when you close your position on margin, it's going to make it go down a little if you were long. So, because basically, you see what I mean? You're basically selling.
Yes.
So what happens is, then there's a fear cascade. So that happened once, and then it kind of bounced on 280, and then it went up again, because of, people that don't like technical analysis and indicators. But there were some technical things that looked really okay, and it kind of went up again from 280, and it didn't get 300, and then it was like, okay, we didn't hit 300 again. And then the news of evolution came out, that this dark marketplace got hacked, and there were a bunch of Bitcoin stolen. So it was kind of the combination of that, with a lot of people being overextended with loans out, going long, that is thinking that it's going to go up, and then that just kind of caused a little bit of a freak out, and people started selling off. But it started this really massive sell-off. We had a very massive sell-off all the way down to 240 range on Bitfinex, which is a lot. So go to the right. See that big red candle? That's a pretty massive sell-off. So all of that, effort it took to go up, that the price was struggling to go up, it just got destroyed in that one red candle there on the right side. And that was, like I said, it was a good reason to just sell off. People that are, because people, I don't know if people watching understand it, you can also short Bitcoin. That means you profit from the price going down. So it just depends on, you can either say, I want to go long, I profit when it goes up, or I profit when it goes short. So and if you hold coins, going short is kind of a way to hedge what you're holding. So what happens is, if a majority of people say, well, I think it's just not going to go up anymore, then people start selling off, and they sell off in a dramatic way, like we just saw. And they're spooked because I think, 7,000 Bitcoins were hacked at Evolution Dark Marketplace, or 8,000. And, I don't think they're going to be sold on an exchange, but who knows? I mean, I would assume they're sold. If they were going to get rid of them, you'd sell them OTC, but it's a lot harder to trace. But, I've heard people, speculate of other ways to do it. Who knows? There's lots of ways. I mean, you could mix it and then throw it on BTCE. You could mix it and throw it on a lot of exchanges. I mean, it's hard to get fiat out of those exchanges, but you can do it. And that's a lot of coins, and if you wanted to get rid of them quickly, you probably would have trouble doing that OTC too. You just don't go on local Bitcoins and say, I need a buyer for 7,000 Bitcoins. I mean, you get noticed. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you might be able to sell 100, but 1,000 is already like really crazy. So it would take a while to get rid of them, and if they're really hot, you probably would want to get rid of them, even if you tumble them.
Yeah.
Assume you want to get rid of it.
Well, the easiest way to tumble them, we talked about it before, not that this is advice, it's just journalistic reporting on the facts based on things that I've been told firsthand from people in forums and chat rooms and stuff, is that what they were doing was they were going onto exchanges like BTC-E, they were taking the stolen Bitcoins on there, and then they were trading them for Litecoin, which is a separate blockchain, taking them off the BTC on Litecoin, taking them to another exchange, cashing them out either for dollars or Bitcoin, and then back out again. You see, now what you've done there is you've produced two air gaps. You produced two very big gaps now. In order to find out who it was, you not only have to go and find whoever owns BTC-E, and no one really knows, and you've got to somehow consolidate the Litecoin entries from the Bitcoin entries, because the Litecoin blockchain and the Bitcoin blockchain are two separate things. So you've then got to get a hold of that database. You've then got to go to the exchange wherever they were sent after that and find out what happened thereafter, you see. So it's no small task now for these guys. Now, the allegation is, because let's bring up the Reddit post, we had a chap here who came on. He doesn't have a sort of an identifiable handle. It's just ZL. Z-L is what he's going by, and he's saying that he was involved in Evolution. That's the name of the dark market that was hacked. It's actually a very good article in the description below. It's this one here by Darlene Storm, Darknet's Evolution Drug Marketplace poofs, along with $12 million in Bitcoin. And she has a very, very good write-up. It's in computerworld.com, where she gives lots and lots of links to all the Reddit posts. I love articles like this that actually take you straight to the source of the information. They don't try to cover it up and make it like it's their article. And, you know, some of the stuff that's been going on in here has been pretty heavy. Sounds like the people that are coming forward, sounds like they're being threatened and they're being told that they're being paid off. I saw this was posted. I think you sent me this video.
Right.
Like,
so this is allegation.
Yeah.
This guy that posted a lot of stuff or something saying, hey, I know that they just stole the coins, basically. It wasn't a hack. He says this is an email he got saying, well, just shut up and I'll give you, what is it, 5K, 5,000. Yeah. Just give me your Bitcoin address and just take your Reddit post down and stop it. I mean, you know, that could also be falsified, but it's interesting. And I think I think that you were saying earlier, didn't someone say that the site is going back up? Well, now I know what you mean. It's not that it's going back up. What you flipped through it, someone has the whole site, the database, the SQL or whatever. So theoretically, someone could just put it up again, you know, with the whole structure. I mean, you wouldn't have the coins, of course, but if someone wanted to redo the site, they could pretty easily, because I think that there's been a dump of the database somewhere on the net, and it wouldn't be that hard to just put it back up. There, dump, right? So I don't know if it's legit or whatever. I'm not,
yeah, no, that was something that I heard last night in TeamSpeak. When we say on air, when we talk about like TeamSpeak, we're talking about the Whale Club, and I've also included that link to that website as well in the description, because often we mention these guys. It's basically a chat room. TeamSpeak is a piece of software you can install. It's a bit like Skype or Mumble if you use either of those, and it allows you to do either text chatting or voice chatting in a chat room of traders, basically, and they call themselves whales, slightly ironically, but I also think non-ironically too. There probably genuinely are some rich people in there who just want to get early access to early information. So yeah, what I was hearing last night in the chat room was that there was rumors that it was going to go back up online, and even if that doesn't mean that the coins are going to be there, that headline in itself and that rumor in itself breeds a certain anticipation amongst traders. Traders are now like hawks, watching the price and watching for any news, because what you're trying to do as a trader is you're trying to anticipate other people's actions. So as you learn the news, you're forced into this empathetic role of trying to work out, okay, what is someone else going to do with the same information? And then it's a case of, you've got your capital into the market before other people, and so you've then got to try and decide.
It almost makes me think of some sort of a conspiracy theory that a bunch of people can actually fake a scandal like this just to bring the price down, right? Because you sell when it goes down, you buy when it goes down, you sell when it goes up. So I don't know. You can
Well,
just
yeah, no, that's not even a controversial thing to say now. Like we're
Yeah.
pretty much used to this kind of manipulation. And one of the interesting things is that now I've been making friends in journalism from traditional finance. I was at Tomorrow's Transaction Forum over the last few days, meeting various people in payments industry, particularly the retail payments sector, not so much high finance and so on, but just meeting all these people, and you start to realize, you know, you hear things about corruption, like I say, not directly related to any of the people at the forum I was in, but they tell me stories of other areas, and it's like, oh, this corruption isn't unique to Bitcoin, not in the slightest. What Bitcoin is doing is it's shining a light on it, because you've got the blockchain, and because you've got, you know, these technorati class, I call them, you know, people like this that can get hold of a SQL dump, get hold of a database, and then throw it back up online. Same thing happened with MT Gox. The SQL database was leaked with everyone's details in, everyone's private transactions and all of that, and their email addresses and everything. And now it allows for everyone to take control. You don't have to wait for a committee or a police investigation, which end up taking ages, and it's inside of this black box, and you don't know what's going on. And you know, it allows people to self-govern and self-regulate. But the way it looks, at least in the short term, whilst the media misreport it, is it looks like Bitcoin is just full of scammers. No, the whole world
yeah.
is full of scammers.
Yeah, but then again, it's like something that people in media are going to immediately jump on. And sometimes, like if you read about some sort of scam, you wonder. Sometimes it just looks a bit too sexy in terms of, oh, there is mafia involved and there is drugs and weapons and all this sort of stuff. It would even interest my dad, who doesn't give a lot of a fuck about Bitcoin, but just wants to read some cool stuff, you know, about, because it
Yeah.
just looks like something which is good for a movie. And at the same time, so it spreads very quickly because we like bad news and other people getting fucked over, especially if they're drug dealers. And so this kind of news is really easy to put out. And at the same time, it does affect dramatically, like this kind of news dramatically affect price of Bitcoin. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, there's I basically agree. There's even debate on whether the news itself is what really. It's kind of like, does the news affect the price, or is it something else? Because that's why I said it was a good excuse for a sell-off, because fundamentally there's no reason for it to go down, because they're, like I said, they're not going to sell those coins on the exchange. But just the fear kind of gives a good case that, you know, like Chris was saying, what is everyone else going to do, or could they maybe jump on the ride to go down? Well, yeah, that's kind of a good way to kind of push the stone down the mountain in a way. So, you know, that's what I think, at least in this case, what happened. I mean, typically in other cases where it's involving news, you have this in other markets too. There, like for example, the Fed just had an announcement. What was it, 1 or 2 days ago? Yellen came on and gave a talk, and that's highly anticipated because everyone wants to know, are they going to raise interest rates or not? But basically, it's already priced in, meaning everyone has already decided what is likely going to happen, and the price adjusted accordingly. And as long as the speech is not anything different, then the price will do nothing, or it might go down a little bit. But if there's something unexpected that is not what was people thought was going to happen, then the price could go crazy in either direction. That's what happens with those announcements. But this is an expected thing, not a hack. That is different. But you still see, that's what you typically see with any. So you had, like I said, the coin in Bitcoin. You had this Coinbase news, and it was actually a double header. You had Coinbase making an announcement, and the Winklevoss twins doing a talk at a conference on the same day as that Coinbase pump, and that made So two chances to dump on the news, basically, so that everyone bought on the rumor and then sold on the news. You can see it
Well,
in the
that's
chart.
it. That's exactly
Yeah,
what the traders say, isn't it? You buy on the
yeah,
rumor, you sell on the news, and that's why I think a lot of lay people, particularly retail investors, that are routinely exploited in these kinds of markets by people that know, more information about how these work than they do, is that the people go, well, why is the price crashing with all this good news? It's well because profits are the result of information privilege, information asymmetry. You make profit by having access to information ahead of other people. That's what it describes. In fact, if you want to know who's on the inside group, just go look at who's making the most money. That should tell you. And so, yeah, we had this kind of pump up, but like you say, it wasn't. It was just an excuse. I think what we've got into the habit of doing now, amongst the traders. I say I'm not a trader. I'm saying we, like I'm one of them, but. Was that they ended up getting into a habit of doing was saying, well, this is what we always do. When something like this happens, when something on the dark market gets hacked, we're supposed to dump now. And that they're making themselves slaves to the trend because they remember it happening
yeah.
before.
But you know what happened? The Winklevoss twins spoke, and people dump every time they speak too.
Right.
I know it sounds. I don't mean to disrespect them or anything. Actually, I did watch their talk in Texas at the fest there, but yeah, it just tends to be a thing because everyone is waiting for their ETF to come out, and they think if the ETF comes out, that's going to be an extreme bullish event, and it's going to go to the moon, or there's going to be a big price action when it comes out, because institutional investors and people that don't want to send their money to Bitfinex or OKCoin or whatever are gonna buy into the ETF, and they don't have to worry about a wallet and all that kind of stuff. So every time the Winklevoss speak and they don't say that the date and when it's coming out, people will sell when they speak, basically. So that's what's going to happen repeatedly until it comes out, I think. I mean, that's my theory. I mean, if it's a pyramid scheme, maybe. Some people call it. I mean, some guy that is a internet marketer, he said, yeah, it's kind of like crypto multi-level marketing sometimes. That's how he views it. I don't know if I totally agree, but I mean, yeah, I'm just kind of reporting on what's going on with the news and why that affects the price. And like you said, people that about the information, yeah, I guess that's why people like this channel. I mean, even though we're not giving advice on trading, please never take that as advice. Trade your own account. But people want information, and they want information quick. And it's about, whether it's about trading or whatever, and that's why people watch, videos on YouTube, and why we do Hangouts, because people want to know what's going on, and we're able
Right.
to
And
give that out in a real fast way. It's amazing, and like
yeah.
the whole thing with Whale Club, the reason there's over 200 people hanging out there all the time is because information comes in fast, and no editing. There are mods, but it's just to prevent people from, like, I mean, imagine if we were doing a video now and anyone could come in the room right now live. That's how it is in TeamSpeak. That's why there's a mod to say, what the moderators do? They say, they bring you to another room that's not public, and they say, "Are you a troll?" And the person says, "No," and then you get speaking power. So, and then if they start trolling, then they get kind of kicked out. So I mean, just don't want people to go totally nuts. This is
the thing that I've been saying for a long time. That truth is the only commodity in any market that never loses its value. Right? We always need the truth. And it doesn't matter how much you lie and how many press releases you pump out and how many perceptions you like to manufacture. The more you lie, the more valuable the truth becomes, because the more scarce it gets, the more desperate people get to learn it. Because even if you're one of the liars, you still need to know what the truth is, right?
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, and I'm not. Now I want to just nuance what I just did there. I posted up the Wikipedia link to pyramid scheme. Bitcoin is not a pyramid scheme. But the whole industry is being used like one giant pyramid scheme because of all the centralized institutions that sit on top of it that want to exploit the people that have less information than them. And there are two categories of people, I think, in the space right now. And the ones I'm championing aren't the ones that have access to the special information and want to use it against the people below them and keep them where they are, or keep them down, as it were, or keep them ignorant. Let's say, let's keep them ignorant. If it's true that being technically proficient and being an engineer, having knowledge about this special stuff is quote unquote better because it's more relevant to the universe itself, if we have some underlying understanding of the nature of reality ahead of our peers, then surely it behooves us to educate people and teach them about it and not use that knowledge like a weapon to hurt them even more. And that's sort of how I feel like this whole ETF is just basically a way for the Winkle bosses to get out of their position gradually, probably because they'll be putting their own funds into this thing and they'll be selling off quietly into the strength.
Yeah, I mean that's a valid theory. I think, sure, of course, they're gonna, they're gonna want to do something too, and yeah, it could be, and that's definitely, I like that. Say that again about if you're lying, it's even more valuable to know the truth.
The more people lie, the more press releases, the more perception management that goes on, the rarer the truth gets and the more valuable it gets, because the truth becomes scarce and even frauds need to know what the truth is.
That's true, very nicely put. Yeah, it's almost it's like definitely worth a tweet if I will be able to remember it by the end of this conversation.
Yeah,
I've said it before. I used to say it in the troll box a lot over on BTCE. I was one of the most prolific users of the BTC-E troll box. I never did any trading. I did a little bit, but not much.
We all know
mostly because I just used to lose money.
You're just hiding. We know that you're a big trader. You're going 50.
No, I lost money doing it, and I was just like, and I lost like $60, $100, and that's a lot for me. So I was just like, I'm not doing this. This is a scam. I used to take part in the whole Fontus scams. He used to come on and do his scams, and I was naive when I first started. I'd never done trading before or anything like that, and I fell for it, and then I just spent all my time in there just I don't know, just trying to help people out, just like trying to get people off of the chat room. I felt like I have this responsibility to get to know people, like why are you here, what are you doing, like what's your story, what are you about. And I met some really cool people in there, made some good friends, and I met a lot of people offline. I met Leslie, who I ended up staying with in Copenhagen. It turned out that she was also in the troll box about the same time as me. So I ended up meeting a whole bunch of people from the troll box, even though it's this like anonymous space, even though it gives you this cloak. But actually that anonymity gives rise to an authenticity. It allows people to be more fully themselves. And it's a genius piece of social engineering on the part of the developers. I don't know that they intended it. Maybe they just bought BTC off the shelf. Maybe it was just something they bought off another company or bought off the shelf. But having a chat room next to a financial chart and indices is an incredible piece of social engineering, because you're looking for information. You're approaching a decision.
Well, we're all. I totally agree. And we're all trading online. And people used to trade at a marketplace or in a trading pit, and that's different than just trading in front of a screen. There's no one to talk to. So there's different. Some people need to feel each other out. See what the general mood is in the room. What are people talking about? Are they trying to lie? Are they telling the truth? Those are all factors that can factor into what the market is doing at that time, and that's one reason I think.
It's funny actually. You will notice it in the cities, usually kind of large cities, that sort of Bitcoiners, especially traders, they always tend to have the most sort of active meetups and meet all the time and talk about stuff one-on-one. I think there is some sort of social psychology going on. Definitely.
Well, it's really about what I noticed was that it made it easy for anyone to become a pumper dumper, provided you had a little bit of money. Because one of the features of Bitcoin is that it has very low liquidity, relatively speaking. Because what happened was a whole bunch of exchanges came into the space, particularly when Mt. Gox had like 80% of the market or whatever it had, and a lot of entrepreneurs and middlemen, rent seekers, came along and thought it would be a great idea to set up their own exchange. And it wasn't a good idea because what it led to was a lot of fragmentation, a lot of hacking. Of course, now you're lowering the barrier to entry for a hacker. You're creating a huge centralized wealth of money, concentration of money, which is why Evolution got hacked. It's why all the other hacks have happened. It's because you can't attack the blockchain, or you can try, and many people have, but they failed, right? And as a result, security is only as strong as its weakest link. And the weakest link, when you set up a centralized exchange, with, especially if it's been written in PHP and a LAMP stack, of course people are going to start attacking those servers because those attack vectors are well researched and they know how to do it.
Yeah, and just think about, I mean, it is I think everyone realizes it. I mean, it is a Darknet site. So, nobody, every time I speak, it cuts
you
me
okay?
off or what?
No, I can hear you. Maybe.
Hello?
Yeah,
Can
I
you hear
can
me?
hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to try to talk, I guess.
Oh, we may have lost Theo. So what I'm going to do, whilst waiting for Theo to come back, is I'm going to answer some of these questions. So we've got a few questions from Infinite Radio about ProTip. So let's go through those. You can click on the Q&A in one of these two corners. There's a button, and you click on that, and it takes you to a new web page which has the same video in it, but then you'll be able to see all the questions up on the screen as I read them. So Infinite Radio asks, it seems the rub is the content creators. Good content is still hard to find and will be hard to access as long as the majority of people still propagate the white noise media. How will ProTip uniquely navigate through the ocean of white noise? Well, the answer is that it doesn't have to. It actually just looks at your browsing habits. And one of the things we've taken as our assumption is that people are usually pretty good at making decisions about where they want to go. So I know what it's like to go onto Google to have some decision that I need to make and to start gathering information. I can usually tell when I've just been scammed. I don't particularly like it, but I don't spend a lot of time on the page. One of the most frequent phenomena you find on the internet is what's known as the bounce. And the bounce rate is how many people come to your site for 3 seconds and then leave, go away straight away. Why? Because of such a thing called information hierarchy in design and more generally in IT. You're trying to arrange the information in such a way that you have some kind of headline at the top that gives you the gist. That should make you want to read the byline. That should make you want to read the first paragraph, which should make you want to read the rest of the article, and so on. So the way we're getting around some techniques that we predicted of scamming people and getting people to spend longer on a page than necessary was, first of all, you have curation tools. So you can block websites and you can say, I don't want to pay this one. You've got 7 days to do it, or up to 7 days to do it, because it collects your weekly habits. And it also only pays by default the top 10 websites that you visit every week. So in order to spam, in order to trick you into spending longer onto a page than you would ordinarily, you would have to actually spend a proportionate amount of time that is disproportionately longer than all of the websites that presumably you enjoyed. And also we have 3 levels of the way that the app behaves. You can either be a very cautious tipper, or I think we call it the discerning donator, or you can be very, very generous. And if you go for the discerning one, obviously it will pick different parameters and it won't be as generous for you to use. And one of the hopes that we have is that people start to enjoy this process, right? Because it gives you as an artist the ability to turn around to your audience and say, if you like this content, hit the subscribe button in the app. And because it's open source, even if we don't get the user interface right, or even if we don't do the marketing correctly, well, someone else has got an opportunity to do it. All of these tools are open source. The only thing we're going to ask people to do is please keep in line with the same schema. Don't make artists have to choose between which app that they tell their audience to support. Give everyone a common set of standards and do that. So that's that answer. Now, you've asked a couple of other questions. Let me get through to those. So as a content creator, music, Infinite Radio says, I would need to be persuaded enough to move away from places like Bandcamp and other PayPal-friendly ways people buy my music as one-time purchases to a streaming-centric version of my work, I guess like SoundCloud. Second part of the message, which is definitely where the center of gravity is moving, at least in music, to a more pay-by-play revenue stream. I can see a big-time use case for ProTip with music streaming. Is there any effort to reach out to some kind of decentralized Pandora? Well, that's really cool. first thing I would say is, at the moment, ProTip is basically Leo, me, and then on the launch team we've got obviously Ksenia, Theo, Tom, and we've got David Bailey from Hub BTC who's going to be shipping all of the perks. So it's a very, very skeleton crew. And also bear in mind that we haven't released it yet. We're releasing it on the 1st of May. We've given the code out to some other members of the community. There are about 20 members that have been testing it. A lot of that's sort of semi-public. I mean, those people are not unknown to us in the Bitcoin community. So don't worry if we don't, you know, if something happens to us and we don't, for whatever reason, fulfill it, the code is not going to be lost. It's going to be out there. But it's a good sort of 3-4 months of a good developer's time to re-engineer what we've done. It's not going to be up to us. I don't want it to be like, you know, what are you going to do, Chris, about, you know, getting this out to this particular group of people. I want everyone to feel like they can pick up a role here. You know, I'm looking forward to when we launch the GitHub. I'm looking forward to like getting the Slack up and running and getting people in there, because I want everybody to feel like they're a part of this. Like, actually, I want to get this out. Let's bring up Bandcamp, okay?
Yeah. So I did tweet sfx.io, but I haven't really been behind them. So sfx.io is basically a SoundCloud kind of clone, I guess, without being too... a simplified version of SoundCloud. And what they have is Bitcoin addresses for tipping already on there. So, you know, you have music, you can upload music, and people stream it, and I think they can even download it too if you set that. And they could really benefit from, you know, if the people used ProTip, because that would be a real easy way for people to tip them. Right now you have to copy the address and put it in your wallet.
Yeah, well, one of the things that you can do, even if you're using something like Basecamp, remember all you've got to do is paste a Bitcoin address. So actually, you do have some space here just to paste it. So where you've got, you know, stuff like this down here, I think, is this right? Is this the? Yeah, this is written by the artist, right? This is written by the artist.
Hold on, no wait, Basecamp music. Bandcamp.
Is that the wrong site? Sorry.
Bandcamp. Bandcamp. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to do a screen share because already I've been, you know, my bandwidth is being blocked by the NSA for just doing anything. So, yeah, Bandcamp is really popular. SoundCloud is extremely popular. And you know what? At Inside Bitcoin. Inside Bitcoin's Berlin, a guy from SoundCloud was there. I did talk to him for a while. I don't know what they're up to, but they're definitely looking at everything that's going on in the crypto world. And of course, there's already BitTunes, but that wouldn't include ProTip because they have their own system. But yeah, I mean, right now with Bandcamp, you just add your Bitcoin address to your description there somewhere, and there you go. You're off. You can do it. So that's what's really cool, is that you can integrate ProTip. No need to ask permission. No need to flood the API or anything. You just do it.
Yeah, it's done very, very simply. So yeah, there is space here for people to start trying things out. And I think one of the important things that needs to happen in crowdfunding is we need to stop centralizing around these big conglomerates. You know, you've got Kickstarter, you've got Indiegogo, those are your biggest two. Because if all we do is every time you put yourself on those platforms, you're helping them, because you're giving them traffic. Because remember, you're doing the marketing for your campaign. So you've got to ask yourself, who profits? Who benefits from this? Am I working for Indiegogo right now by publicizing and sending everyone to their website, or am I working for myself? And if I'm working for myself and I'm working to help achieve my goal, am I also not helping other people who want to do the same by proving that such a use case can be possible? I'm also inspiring other people who maybe are not yet in my position in life where they're ready to do something like this but would like to, who are going to use someone like me as a case study and go, well, how did Chris do it? And start to look at some of the anatomy of the techniques. I don't want to be teaching people about how to play the system, about how to get your rich friends to donate to you early on so that you drive up the ranking. I don't want to teach that shit. I want to say to people, no, just go in your own direction, just tread your own path, you know, and take inspiration from people, but don't let anyone dictate to you how this game is played.
Yeah, and that's not the game that most people are trying to play anyway. People are musicians, artists, writers, inventors, or people that build robots or make bicycles or virtual reality things, and they're not marketers. They should be able to spend more time making stuff and less time doing, you know, SEO inside the SEO inside the SEO.
Yeah, it's basically because for companies like Kickstarter, you know, I haven't been following them in terms of investment, but I imagine that all this traffic they're getting makes them attractive to investors, especially if they position themselves as a middleman who can then justify rent extraction by taking large fees, particularly like 4 or 5%, and then of course they do, you know, they have deals with PayPal where they get a little bit of commission back on anyone who pays with PayPal there. That's one of the reasons why we couldn't get our PayPal to work at first. It's because it turns out that Indiegogo have got a deal with PayPal. So when they went to use my account, even though PayPal had validated me, Indiegogo hadn't. And so I couldn't take donations in the first 6 hours using PayPal. It was, you know...
That's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, they're not admitting it, but it's kind of what I've worked out, and we still, you know, are paying Tom, which is highly inconvenient, and probably we're going to have to pay more fees, and I'm hoping that he can just trade it into Bitcoin and then send the Bitcoins to us, and then we'll go to one of our friendly traders here in the UK who will hopefully be kind enough to give us a nice 0% commission. But it's still a pain in the ass for us because it means that, you know, we've got more admin to do. So, you know, you're still working for someone else. The question you should always be asking, especially with the pyramid schemes like we had up earlier, is who are you working for? You know, there's probably someone less creative, less courageous than you, who is using you and is giving you a platform so that they can extract rent so that they don't have to. And I want to see that stop. That's got to stop right now. So, another question. Bandcamp costs over $100 a year for the one that I have. This is, again, this Infinite Radio. So a revenue stream without that cost is highly desirable. Can ProTip be utilized with SoundCloud? Yes, it can. Again, you just post a Bitcoin address into the description of the SoundCloud audio file itself. Now, it does at the moment, it does rely on you using a web browser in the desktop. So, for example, this wouldn't work on a mobile if you were inside of an app. However, we are sort of looking at the mobile space. It is obviously possible to build extensions, especially Chrome now, I think, is now integrated on mobile and on the desktop. Apple don't have more than 20% market penetration, I believe. I'm right in saying that, because I can say that with some confidence because I was at the Transactions conference and someone actually said that Apple actually get worried when they get more than 20% penetration because that means they're not selling to the fashionistas and the people that like paying $700 for a phone. So yes, there is a way into mobile. We can see that that's there. The problem is that you've got less resources right now on mobile, and of course we'll never be able to get inside of private apps, but I actually don't think that we need to. I think the mobile is a changing space. I think we're going to see new hardware, especially a lot of open source hardware coming along. I think the supply chains in the mobile space are opening up. You've got companies now like Alibaba that are doing deals with much smaller, much leaner tech companies who are basically making their own mobile hardware. And I think if we, give this another 5 years, I think you're going to see the mobile space being very different. So I don't want to design an app for a paradigm that is not going to exist in 5 years' time when wearables are going to be much more common, for example. I would rather establish a culture now, a culture of reward, where people want to actually connect with people, because paying is connecting. It's what you do when you pay someone. You make a connection with them, you're communicating your sacrifice with them. Just because businessmen turn up to work every day wearing the same thing and they're all wearing suits, sorry, that's just a deep fucking philosophical irony of the current society that we live in, this civilization. Like, these people should, like, markets are supposed to be diverse, rich conversations. They're not. What they've turned into is a bunch of pallid businessmen.
I think culture is the word I've been using over and over again, because I don't want this conversation to sort of slip into there is a certain paradigm when you release a software tool which is for profit and has a business model which, for instance, based on trading user data, usually people behind these tools try to just push their tool. And in this, I think in this case, what we need to really talk about, it's culture. If it should be a complete diversity of tools, if we contribute to the culture of tipping and what I call it a peer-to-peer philanthropy, then someone can come up with an app which does it with whatever, like which works on whatever hardware there is, right? Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which tool is used, as long as there is a flow in there, as long as there is this basically culture of supporting each other peer-to-peer for what you actually consume and what you appreciate. So I wanted to say something profound, and I said just a lot of banal things. Something about, okay, it's just going to pop up again later. No, what was it?
I thought it was pretty profound. I like this idea of peer-to-peer philanthropy, for example. Though, I don't know, there's a danger that it could be just like conflating two buzzwords together just to try and create a whole new...
Yeah, no, I didn't create this buzzword. I think it exists already. I mean, peer-to-peer charity exists, is when instead of just giving it to a charity which has overheads and flies business class, you basically try to ping it directly to someone.
Yeah, I'm really fed up with charities, and I'm really fed up with their disingenuous nature, and I'm fed up with like this whole kind of third sector, you know, thing we have in the UK with all this kind of corporate social responsibility. I don't see how a corporation can feel sorry for anyone or feel anything, really. It's just a group of people agreeing to a set of actions in the future. I don't think a company can have any kind of sense of responsibility. So I don't, and also what I notice is a lot of these third sector companies that engage in these kind of charitable NGO, non-governmental organizations, it's the same old fucking people that are applying for these grants and these schemes. And we had it like financial inclusion section at the forum a couple of days ago. I'm sorry, but it was mostly just a bunch of white middle-class people from the West patronizing a bunch of, you know, poor Africans. I mean, that was actually, I'm not even going to mention the name of the person, but there was a person, this panel at a company that has been pushing themselves pretty hard in the Bitcoin space about, you know, inclusion in Africa and getting Bitcoin to people. And I'm sorry, but this representative actually used the quote, poor Africans or whatever, in a very kind of blasé way.
What did he say?
Poor Africans or whatever.
Yeah, so the answer that a group of us heard that this person say was, we heard them say, most of our customers aren't poor Africans or whatever. And there was a heated moment. It wasn't on camera. Regretfully, I didn't film it. I wish I had. That's why I'm not saying who it was. But because I can't back it up and I can't prove it. But there was a heated debate because I asked a question that I thought was a reasonable one. It was about the fees. Why is it basically these companies that are now competing with Western Union? Western Union were there, by the way, and one of their guys very bravely tried to give a presentation. He was very sheepish and nervous. As soon as I went up to ask a question, he ran off the stage, like he quickly walked off the stage when he saw that I was about to ask a question. Why? Because a couple of presentations before, I'd already asked a question of someone else at the Gates Foundation. I said, do you not think that the video you've just shown us with all of these people in Africa using iPads does not come across as a little bit like neo-colonialism? I think I used the term soft colonialism. And everyone laughed. Everyone burst out laughing because everyone was thinking it, but no one was saying it. And so I just said, I always do this, I just say whatever's on my mind, it just comes out, there's no filter, it just goes bleh. And I was like, do you not think this is highly disrespectful, neo-colonial? You're just going in, telling about, have you asked any of the people on the ground whether or not this is the kind of technology they want? Because you're gathering all this data. So anyway, fast forward 24 hours, another panel, quasi about, finance and inclusion and stuff. And this person who runs the, this company kept using the personal pronoun I when referring to the company, as if it was this person's company, as if this person was the company, as if they were doing everything. And Isabella, who was Kaminska, my friend at the Financial Times, was chairing the panel, just doing a really good job, started going toe to toe with this person. Now, all I asked was, do you not think that the companies that are coming into this space now that are basically doing arbitrage on Western Union? It's the same peer group, it's the same group of rich Western people coming into the same industry, but instead of charging 12.5%, they charge 6%. And then another round will come in, and instead of charging 6%, they'll just charge 4%. Why not just skip right to the end of this and just charge what is a fair price charge? Anyway, it got very defensive. At one point they said to me, like, well, do you want me to show you my tax return? It started getting very defensive, which led me to believe that maybe they had something to hide. And then eventually, I think when they kind of lost it, they were just like, well, look, to be honest, most of our customers aren't poor black Africans or whatever, or poor Africans or whatever like that. And it was just this very like, whoa, and everyone was kind of a bit shell-shocked. And I looked around at some people, and it's like, did you just hear what I just heard? And then afterwards, I went up to Isabella and a group of us, and I was like, did you hear them say this? Yes, we all heard them say this. Did you tweet it out? No, no one tweeted it out. Fuck, I wish I'd recorded that. So I'm just, I'm a little bit annoyed because I just think there's a whole bunch of people that are just in this for the short term, and they just see this as like, something they want to jump on, and then they use it to exploit another group of people, and I think that's deeply unfair.
I think that's a bit of a shame. I've been in this kind of social entrepreneurship space for a while, and sometimes I just wish, well, first of all entrepreneurship's supposed to be ethical, just because that's what it should be. It shouldn't be bad, right? But then when they start raving about like we're better because we're kind of social, or we're doing something social, I rather, that's I think my obsession with philanthropy is about. I'm afraid that this social entrepreneurship actually killing philanthropy, because now we're going to just all be businesses who are doing social good and generating profit at the same time. But some transactions are not about profit. Some transactions are just transactions. It's like, oh, I'm gonna give some money to a tramp who's begging outside of the supermarket here because he's gonna do what? Because he's gonna clean up or something? It's like, no, I just have a chat with him and maybe he's nice. And there is some kind of niceness which I think is killed by this idea of like social entrepreneurship. Okay, I'm investing, and at the same time, with creating this profit, I'm going to go to heaven or something like that. It's kind of fucked up, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I remember the first time I heard the term, I said, what is that? I mean, I was really suspicious, because it was kind of like at a startup hangout kind of thing, and I was like, what is that? Okay, that's fine.
Really,
I didn't really. Yeah, it is. I mean, you could look at it as you just described and then say, well, I want to give him some money or an apple because he's going to become a customer later. And that's really horrible in a weird way.
Yeah, I think it's kind of corrupting, because a lot of people who are a bit younger and less skeptical than I am, and I'm bloody skeptical about everything, they sort of say, no, social entrepreneurship is really cool. It's like, no, sometimes you create value, not necessarily profit. If you can, then there is sort of an ethical issue about how much you should get paid, because you still should pay your bills. But I think what it really comes from, even in like European startup scene, is extremely precarious bunch, to tell the truth, and everyone's just getting so greedy and obsessed about profit just because the alternative they see is just to be poor and not to be able to afford like a coffee in Starbucks, whatever. So no one likes, I mean, there's the whole recession crisis stuff, which actually makes people kind of greedy, because, I mean, it's a shame, but I'm not sure what the point I'm making here, but yeah, because I also kind of follow quite closely this, there's social entrepreneurship in Europe, and then everything which is not Europe, sort of what they call the developing countries, like, and people in heated conversations called Africans or whatever. There is a lot of stuff there which is obviously like a business case, really dressed up for like social good reasons, it's really hard to separate these things. Of course, like there is a bunch of people here. It's called communication for development. The whole academic discipline, right, is how to use information technology in order to get out of the misery and stuff like that. And there are loads of good people in this space trying to bring good technology where it's needed and stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot of shit just being smuggled in, and I don't know. Think of even Google Loon when the first thing you're gonna ever see in your browser will be Google, right? So it's like, I think it's a lot about choices, you know. When you don't see an option to have a choice when you start using something, it's probably a scam. Who said that recently to me? If you don't see a price tag, it probably means it's on you.
Thomas was saying that a lot.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think a lot of these social entrepreneurship programs, some of them are well-meaning, and some of them generally I really like. Like I like Nesta, for example, and I'm good friends with Jess there, and she's always been good to me, and she seems very genuine and sincere, incredibly smart. She studied physics, you know. I always really like her every time I speak to her and listen to the conferences that they put on. But a lot of the time what I find is it's the same old people that turn up. You know, it's the same old people that get the money. They know how to fill out the forms. They know how to do it. And it's almost like the social entrepreneurship just makes it easier for them to justify what they're doing, because it's like they've got this social thing and they have to write an impact statement, right? So they raise the 50 grand or whatever, and you know, they're living in a nice lifestyle and they get a nice North London home, and you know, they're shopping at nice places and stuff. And then they fill out some impact statement. And it's like, oh yeah, you know, and then we did this, and then we did this, and then we helped this, and they take some pictures of some like kids with LEAT, you know, not in education or learning or training. Yeah, that's right, young people in not in education or training, and then they you know, publish this report, and it's just a whitewash. It's just like, I'm sorry, but it's a bunch of people sleeping at the wheel. They've got some access to European Commission funding, or they've got some grant from the lottery, or they've got this and that could be used on anything else, right? But instead, it just goes to these people that know how to game systems. Now, speaking of gaming systems, Ajan has just asked a very good question, and something that I hadn't thought of before. Regarding ProTip, what happens if a site has multiple artist content providers on the same page? Example, 4 music videos on a page, but only 1 Bitcoin address. Well, literally what happens at the moment, actually what happens, is that it only pays that Bitcoin address. The app cannot be intelligent about those videos. But you bring up a big point. This could, in theory, incentivize copyright infringement. It could incentivize people to set up pages that have other people's work, tempt people onto that page, and use those videos and that music to get them to stay there so that they automatically pay. So that's very interesting. Now, one of the things that we want to do, so let me show you it in action, is we want to integrate with this company, OneName.io. Who run basically an identity service where you can like validate your identity, so you can see here this is me, and then you can go off and see the proof if you don't believe it, and you can see that this was the tweet that I made, and you can see all my details there. I don't know where this is going to take me. Oh yeah, it takes me back to the page. I think there's like also, okay, both of those take me back to the page, but there's also like a registration where it gets put into the Namecoin blockchain, which then means that, oh yeah, here we go. DNS chain, there you go, and you can actually see the raw version of that website. So that's something that we're also thinking about in terms of validating. I think that would be more for like quite popular artists or people who rely or depended on this for a living, because obviously at the moment, like with YouTube videos, anyone can take the embed link, like in this video, go to share, and you can just embed this video in your blog. And of course, then by having your Bitcoin address there, you could use this video as a ploy to get people to spend time on your page so that they pay you. So that is something that I need to think about.
Yeah, we need to think about that. I mean, it could be a ploy. That's true. It could also be argue that it's curation. You know, I mean, we have to decide. You know, is it curation or is it a ploy to get people on your site? You know, I mean, just because I have videos from someone else doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. I had to select the videos theoretically. Although there are some sites that are just loading, even from World Crypto Network, that are just loading all videos from World Crypto Network as they come out on their site.
Yeah, I've noticed that actually people have been downloading my videos and then putting them on their own YouTube videos. And at the moment, I don't mind because they're using my Bitcoin address, which is actually kind of quite flattering, and I kind of don't mind that. So here you can see the app is in action. Here's the ProTip app up here in the top corner. It's bright orange because it's found a Bitcoin address. It lights up and it tells you the number of Bitcoin addresses that it's found on the page. And what it does is it superimposes into the HTML this tick box and this bright green highlight to show you where the address is, and then you can either deselect it or you can select it. And then when you go up to the app, it will actually show you. Oh, actually, you won't be able to see that because I don't have the proper style of screen share on. Let me just do the proper style. So, yeah, so you can see the app here, and it shows you a list of all the people you're going to be paying. Now, this is just my top 10 so far. I haven't got to the end of the week yet. So, you know, you can see this address here. Well, this could be one of the stolen addresses on the Darknet market, right? So, don't want to pay that. But this is like an announcement for something at a Bitcoin conference. I might keep that one. I can always click on it and go see what I was looking at before. You see, I don't have to. I'm not in the dark. I can go back to the page, and so yeah, I get some descriptions, and then anything that I really like this really cool project here called ProTip. I really like this one. Yeah, wanna sponsor that one, right? So that one's going to get more money, and it's going to get auto paid as a weekly subscription, which I can then go back. And what we're anticipating is that, to be honest, most of the people that are going to get paid from this app will probably end up here in subscriptions. So that's what we hope will happen, is that we'll use this as a discovery tool. Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding this copyright infringement stuff and other people posting your stuff on the blog, usually, I mean, from my own experience, usually when I read stuff and bookmark something, I sort of create some kind of a personal relationship with whom I'm reading. And I will be well aware of, I'm not sure if, I don't assume everyone is super aware of stuff they read, but usually if I spend, like, I don't know, 1 minute on someone's page and I don't give a shit about whose page it is, then not a lot of tips going to be going out. Usually something I actually read will, or like topics I read and people I come over and over to read this stuff. I mean, there are probably, I don't know, right now, two or three people I actually regularly come to their blog, and two I know personally, and one I exchange emails with. And, well, maybe I'm not a really avid reader, but what I would like to see is actually, I mean, honestly, I think we're not really consuming all the stuff around which is out there. We're coming to the same writers over and over again because we like them and we establish some sort of personal connection with them. So if I can subscribe to them, and every time there's something in my wallet, I will tip them for it, a little bit of money, then I will be happy, you know. And these are people who I retweet, and I think they're producing good content. So far I can give them recognition by sending the links to their stuff to my friends and retweeting them and so on. But if I can tip them, something can go out to them, then it's just like having your readers, like your little audience. And I think, I mean, with you probably experienced that with World Crypto Network as well. It's not like some absolutely random people. Some people come over because they're interested in this piece of news, but really what's happening now, I think, in this space is every little blog, if it's good, creates a relatively small audience. It almost becomes like federated. In a sense, it's bad because we're kind of bubbling ourselves up in something that we like, but it's just a natural thing. So, like, I would imagine this kind of tools working very much in sort of small virtual communities, which can overlap, of course, but that's what I would imagine it. Like tribes or guilds.
Yes. Exactly, yeah. And what I like about these virtual tribes is that they're overlapping. The problem with physical spaces, you see tribalism. I mean, ISIS is a tribe, and the problem is because it's got the scarcity of physical space, these tribes start bumping up against each other. It's been the defining problem since the dawn of agriculture, is that people will start to fight for territory because that territory is valuable and scarce. But what virtual world does is it removes a lot of those economic barriers, and it actually makes it possible for these tribes to intersect and cross-pollinate. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, one of my favorite social networks of the last sort of 15 years was Flickr. And why? Because Flickr allowed you to meet cool people by sharing common interests. So like, you know, if you were a bird watcher, or like you also like to take pictures of like street photography, you could overlap because there were two communities which had common people in them. And so that used to happen quite a lot in the early days of Flickr. We would go out for meetups. You'd have camera days at weekends. I used to host days where people would turn up with their cameras, and I'd teach them how to use their cameras, and we'd go around taking pictures of London and stuff. And so that was really cool. But then when social media started becoming really, really popular, it almost became too popular, it's too crowded, and you don't feel like you want to meet anyone in a busy, busy place. When it's a bit more like Dunbar number, like 150 or so, then what I noticed was that the smaller groups allowed sort of more sort of social minorities, or people that were perhaps a little bit shy, to come out of their shell, because they were much more likely to come out of their shell in a small group than they were in a large group. So that's why I think we need to go back to those kind of, you know, I think we all need to share protocols. We need to share basic principles, first principles, and really it's going to be about understanding the physics. And I don't think you can understand physics with politics. I think if the moment I think I'm seeing way too much posturing, way too much PR and spin and, you know, perception management going on in the crypto space when people launch this and that project. The incentive structure on day one is not set up well, which is why you've got people like the one I'm talking about at the conference that's getting very defensive on stage. It's because they've got something to hide. We're clearly asking an inconvenient question. It's not nice to be asked because they know the truth deep down, and they're finding it difficult to reply. So I think if we think about those kinds of incentives, as Dave says, as our common friend David Boville says, Ksenia, he says, like, how do we build a physical structure that gives rise to diversity? You want to come up with something that is robust and solid, that gives rise to more diversity on the top, and that has to be a minimal set, a minimal protocol that is elegant, is Occam-like, it contains no more information than it absolutely needs to. So look, we've been on air for over an hour now. Why don't we try to wrap things up a little bit? Let me just sweep through some of these questions. So pro tip, can it be topped up with fiat? Ajan is asking. No, not at the moment. We are talking to payment companies because one of the interesting things we want to try and do is build a partnership with someone that already has the ability to take, you know, credit cards and PayPal payments. But one of the biggest frictions to that is the level of fraud. And I've been told by many people that if I set something up like this, we are going to get shut down within 24 hours because you're going to get lots and lots of credit card fraud coming in. And that's partly not our fault, of course. It's the fault of the credit card companies because you're dealing with a payment system from the 1950s that is not fit for purpose but has nevertheless scaled, perhaps unwarranted, has scaled. And so what we're going to try and do is make it so that the barrier to entry is really low. So if you only have to top up your account with £2 initially, we don't think that we're going to see £2 fraud because it costs you more than £2 to get your hands on a stolen credit card. So they're not going to ROI. So that's what we're thinking of, but like I say, very much kind of all in the air at the moment. Infinite Radio is coming in, he's saying that ProTip can exploit the already present traffic on big conglomerates instead of trying to swim against the current. You're absolutely right. We definitely didn't want this to require installs and all this kind of thing. So like I say, no installation required. All you've got to do is get yourself a Bitcoin address and just copy paste. If you know how to Command C, Command V, you know how to use this product as an artist. It's very, very simple. So copy paste your Bitcoin address everywhere. You should be doing that anyway. On your blog, on your SoundCloud, on your YouTube channel, on your Twitter profile, on your Facebook, everywhere. Just put your Bitcoin addresses on your art so that you can start to be rewarded for it. Is there a way, Infinite Radio again, is there a way to see popular media among pro-tippers within the pro-tip ecosystem? So go to our Indiegogo campaign. link is below. One of the stretch goals is a lot of money. It's under the $50,000 one. Is building the discovery system. But of course, being an open source peer-to-peer, philosophy within our organization, we don't want to build a centralized server, ideally. Now, for the £100, if you pledge £100 to, $100 to this project, beg your pardon, then we will feature your work on our website. It has to be yours, it has to be original work, but we will feature it on our website for some length of time. We'll put it on the homepage, and we'll give you the slot that we've got at the moment on the web page up at the top, okay? So you get a banner. But yes, eventually we would like to create some kind of distributed, probably using RSS, because I think RSS is great and it needs to be brought back into fashion. So yes, we would like to do this, but we would like to do it peer-to-peer, and that's not going to be easy. John says, Theo has less hair than a Buddhist monk.
On my head, yeah.
Yeah, yes. If you can't be honest with yourself, Chris, then you can't be honest with anybody else. Stick to what you believe in. I could not agree more. And hashtag crypto busking. I like this idea of crypto busking, and it's something that we've been talking to another company about in London that tries to help buskers get paid for their work. So we're thinking of maybe hosting like a live stream with some buskers to help them get paid. So yes. Cool. And we also have a question from Tone, who says, you'll never get rid of the greed in crypto till you stop using blockchains as money. Interesting. Like to hear more from you about that, actually. That'd be really, really cool. Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Let me just quickly remind you of the Bitcoin address, just in case you hadn't got it by now. That's where you go to make a donation or pledge. And if you want to claim one of the perks with a Bitcoin pledge, you can simply come to the Indiegogo campaign, and all the instructions are here. You simply leave us a message in the comments section. You go here, leave us a private message with your email and the Bitcoin address that you will be sending from, and then wait a couple of minutes. I'd suggest up to 10 minutes, and then make the payment on Bitcoin. And then we will know it's you, because what I will do is I will compare the time with the blockchain. So I will know that you sent it, and then just tell me which perk you want. Some people have actually been pledging more than the perk amount, and so yeah, if you want a perk and you want to donate Bitcoin, you absolutely can. So thank you everyone for today, guys. Ksenia?
Yep, thanks for having us.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a really good show. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.